Across the Hamilton's police station, and this is another direction to get to Techniques Order. And there's the People's Pharmacy on the right. Okay, now we're coming up on Victoria Street. Victoria Street and King Street. We're going to take a left onto King Street. Now we're right at the stop sign. King Street and Dundonald Street. And onto King Street. Now we turn right onto Curvin Avenue. And this is Techniques Order. And I'm starting from a distance where I can keep going until the wrench click. I don't want to stop in between because that's going to change the reading. And you want to stop soon as it clicks. Okay, so that's stage 1 torque there. And now I will reset the torque wrench and do stage 2. Now I'm just resetting the torque wrench to 44 foot-pound. And I'm going to do stage 2. So that's stage 2. I'll wait for 20 minutes and then I give it the final torque. Okay, so the head torque has been completed, and now we're going to move towards the front of the engine. This is the camshaft sprocket, timing chain sprocket. This is a new one, and this is the old one here. And you can see the difference with the teeth. Look at this teeth right there. This one. Almost no teeth compared to the other one. And you can see where it's actually worn down so bad on the side. But that's the good thing with a timing chain engine. If this was a timing belt engine, sure would destroy the engine. So I'm going to install this new timing chain sprocket for the camshaft. And then on these bolts here, I'm going to use some thread lock. So I'm just bringing it back to TDC. Okay, so the timing chain is on. Just put some thread lock on the bolts. And you definitely want to use some new bolts in this sprocket. This chain don't really have a master link. It just comes with that bronze link there, where I guess you can take it out if the chain stretch. But I mean, if a chain stretch to that point where you need to take out a link, might as well just put a new timing chain. Okay, so we're going to tighten up these bolts, put in the tensioner, and move to the front cover for the timing chain sprocket. And this is what keeps the tension on the timing chain, so it gives a spring and also oil pressure. Now I'm going to set the distributor timing and install the distributor. The camshaft and crankshaft timing already set. And this timing pretty straightforward. It have a timing mark right in here for the camshaft, and that just lined up with the flat surface on the body, basically with this oil pipe. And you have the crankshaft TDC timing mark there. This means number one piston is at TDC on the compression stroke, and number 4 cylinder is at TDC on the exhaust stroke overlapping onto the intake stroke, and you gotta set it right in the center of that overlap. So if you was working on an engine with no timing mark, basically you bring number one piston up to TDC. And we're talking about a regular 4-cylinder or a straight 6-cylinder. Four-stroke engine. And it's pretty much straightforward. With the 4-cylinder engine, you use number 4 cylinder and number 1 cylinder as your reference to set the timing. So you're going to bring number 1 piston at TDC on the compression stroke with the camshaft cam lobe pointing downward in the center of the back of the cam lobe, with number 4 cylinder at TDC overlapping onto from exhaust onto intake. And what you want to do, you want to watch number 4 cylinder, the number 4 cam lobe, just as it come off exhaust and just as you get that slight touch movement going onto intake, and you stop right there. And that will be your position where you're going to set the camshaft along with the piston at TDC. Now back to the distributor. The cam and the crank timing already set. Now I have to line up this distributor with a timing mark on the distributor itself, and then I have to drop it in with a section here lining up with this cut inside of the distributor housing. And because it have a gear, when I put it in, I have to bring it back around like that, and by it sliding, then it will come round to where I want it to be. So let's install it. First I want to add a little oil to it, to the seal, so it don't have too much resistance. And I'm going to add a little oil inside the housing also. And this will help the seal just to slide in. So the first thing, I want to put the distributor in the position that I want it lined up with the opening on the housing. Then if you notice, it's actually in the gear attached. So if you notice, I have the mark lined up right there. Come over closer to the mark. So I have the mark lined up right there. So if I should go down with it like that, you can see it start to go away from the mark. So that's why I'm going to come back. And it still want to go back about one more teeth. And that's where we want to have it, right there. So all the timing marks are lined up now. And we can move on to the next phase and install the rest of the front cover and the valve cover. Now I'm just fitting the gasket for the valve cover. I'm just installing the intake manifold gaskets here. And remember how they was leaking before? So these new gaskets should solve the problem. Now I'm going to install the intake manifold. And this is one of the areas that was making some problem, because we could see where the engine was sucking a lot of air between the manifold and the head. So with the new gaskets and the surface nice and level and clean, that problem should solve. These are some water hoses I'm installing. Remember, these also, they were hard, couldn't flex. So putting in all new hoses, both in the emission, fuel and cooling systems. Okay, so that's the new hose for the bypass there. So we'll put a clamp and then ready to go. And remember, this is one of the areas that we did have to do some correction with these bolts, because one of them did have a broken bolt and another one thread not so good and so on. So now we have a brand new gasket here that we're going to install, and it should be a huge difference. Should be a huge difference with sealing. This is the exhaust manifold. And don't worry about the rusty, it's normally like that, because hot and cold and cast iron. And with these exhaust bolts, we wanted to use some new nut. But these are some special nuts with a special lock nut. This a little better. This some special lock nut without the rubber for the locking. But you know, in Bermuda it's a little difficult to find all the little bits and pieces. So what I've done, I ended up just find another engine where we could have get some good used ones. So even though they're rusty, as long as the spanner is fitting or the socket is fitting good, then there's no problem. And here I'm just untightening these bolts. The first thing I want to make sure so that we're getting a good enough lock on it. And these don't have any special formula to tighten them like how you would need to do the cylinder head bolts. So I'm happy that all the bolts them is tightened good, and we actually could rectify the problem with these two exhaust ports with the bolts and leakage. So I'm comfortable, and I'm happy that this is going to make a huge improvement in the performance and the sound of the engine. So this exhaust gasket here is actually a heat shield. It's a gasket sealing the manifold to the head, between the manifold and the cylinder head, but it's also a heat shield, keeping some of the hot exhaust temperature from the spark plug wires. So this here is important that it's in good shape and in the correct position. So I think we're pretty good with the exhaust side. We're going to make a final check on the intake manifold side. After doing all of this work, and we're getting ready to install the engine in the car, we run into a problem. We need to install this bracket for the power steering pump. And only to find out that 1, 2, 3 bolt is good, but this one can't catch. It's been damaged, and someone work on the engine, leave the bolt out, and it actually get rusty and the thread strip in the front. So now we have to make a decision. After doing all this work, what do we do? Just leave it like that, or we're going to have to fix this one single bolt? And this is where there's a separation with different type of mechanics. Because a lot of mechanics would just leave that bolt because nobody actually going to see it and know that it's missing. But the correct thing to do is to fix it, because it's a reason why they make it with 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. So I'm going to repair the thread, and hopefully we can salvage it. So I'm going to just use the regular tip and die set and just make some new, just try and rethread it. without after, doing any major repairs. So it's a 125 thread, but one of the problem I have is the spacer. I would need to remove all of this stuff here so that we can rotate the angle. But we're not going to go through that. I'll just do a little bit of improvisation, and I'm going to just use a small adjustable to turn the top and the die. I'm just putting a little oil so we get a good cut. So I know it making some thread, or at least cleaning the thread. So we get it go all the way in. I'm gonna just use my hand to back it out nice and straight. Just cleaning the tool. I don't want the tool go back in the kit dirty. So now I'm going to try a bolt in it. And there we go. So that's what it takes. Just a little bit of improvisation. And there we go. All the 4 studs are in. So I'll just bring it down first. Good. Now this is the furthest we can go in terms of assembling the engine. At this point, I'm getting ready to put it in the car, but we have one more thing to do, and that is to change the transmission torque converter seal, because it's in such a difficult area. Even though it's not leaking, I want to change it and put a new one to avoid any short term, or in a year or so the car gotta come back in the garage to change that seal because it may start to leak. So this is the end product at this stage, and now we're going to move to the next stage of installing the engine and change the torque converter seal.